Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today, folks, and we're going to be looking at Tatva Chintan Pharma Chem Limited.
Tatva Chintan.
Yeah, you sent over this earnings call transcript so we can kind of peek behind the curtain
Yeah.
of this really fascinating company. I gotta say, going through this transcript, I was really struck by the sheer range of industries that they're involved in.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about everything from, the pharmaceuticals we rely on
Right.
to like the plastics that we use every single day,
Yes.
and even those electric vehicle batteries. Everyone's talking about these days.
It's true. They're kind of this like unsung hero in a lot of these
Yeah,
really crucial supply chains. And I think
under the radar.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes this earnings call so interesting,
Yeah.
is that we get to actually see like what's going on behind the scenes
Absolutely.
at this company that's really kind of quietly driving
Right.
a lot of these technologies that we depend on. So
Yeah.
let's get into it. First of all, like how is Tatva Chintan actually doing?
Well, financially,
Yeah.
it's kind of a mixed bag.
Okay.
Their revenues are up
Okay.
a little over 3% year over year,
Okay.
which, sounds good on the surface,
Yeah.
but their profits are down about 8%
Oh, wow.
from compared to the same period last year.
Okay. 8%. That's a pretty significant drop.
It is.
Now, the earnings call did mention some lower demand from China as a potential factor in that.
Yeah.
But is there more to the story there?
Yeah, there's always more to this story.
Right.
So they're definitely seeing some, like softening in demand from specific sectors that are heavily reliant on the Chinese market.
Okay.
But it's also important to note that they've been really heavily investing in R&D,
Okay.
which obviously, impacts profits in the short term.
Okay.
But it's a strategic move.
Right sense.
It's about that long-term growth and innovation. They're really, thinking ahead.
Okay, so they're playing the long game.
Exactly.
Even if it means a little bit of a hit in the short term.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about some of their specific segments here.
Okay.
Starting with what they call SDAs. That stands for Structured Directing Agents.
Yes.
And these are used in a lot of things, including EV batteries,
Right.
electric vehicle batteries.
Uh-huh.
And what's interesting here, the call pointed out that there's this recent U.S. policy shift kind of away from EVs.
Right.
And that might actually benefit Tatva Chintan in a way. What's your take on that?
Well, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, on the one hand, right,
Yeah.
you have this potential for a market to contract.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Tatva Chintan is in a pretty good position
Yeah.
to really take advantage of the demand that is there
Uh-huh.
while it lasts. And it's important to remember,
Yeah.
like the auto industry, any sector that deals with vehicles like that is notoriously cyclical.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
they're being smart about this, and they're not like putting all their eggs in one basket.
So they're hedging their bets a little bit.
Exactly. They're diversifying their SDA applications.
Okay.
And they're looking at things like fuel desulfurization
Oh.
and plastic recycling.
Interesting.
And what this does is it makes them more resilient
Yeah.
to these kinds of, policy shifts and market fluctuations.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Speaking of diversification, their PTC segment,
Yes.
phase transfer catalysts,
Right.
seems to be doing really well. They've got 2 new M&C customers
Yeah.
for a new application in recyclable plastics.
It is.
It's actually the largest addition to their PTC segment
Yeah.
in 3 years.
That's right.
And they're even still figuring out the global logistics
Yeah.
of managing all that,
It's a big undertaking, especially with
especially in today's world.
right. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Like the supply chain.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
It's so complex.
It is.
And they're basically orchestrating this symphony
Yeah.
of moving parts to
a global symphony.
to get these products where they need to be.
Right. And I think that really speaks to their ability to adapt, right?
Yeah.
And to innovate. And that's crucial
Yeah,
in today's world.
absolutely. Now, going back to EVs for a moment, I thought it was interesting that Tatva Chintan is not just producing the electrolyte salts
Right.
for these energy storage solutions. They're
Yeah.
actually they're moving into actually formulating the electrolytes themselves.
Yeah.
Which, I see that as a real
It's a bold move.
Yeah.
It signals like they want to be
Yeah.
a real force
a major player.
in that market.
Yeah.
Right. The energy storage market.
Yeah.
And by actually controlling that electrolyte formulation, it gives them an edge,
Yeah.
right? In terms of competition, in terms of profit margins,
Right.
potentially. And it also gives them more control over the quality
Yeah.
and the performance of the final product.
It's a risky move,
It is.
but it could really pay off big time
Oh yeah,
if they can do it.
it could be huge.
All right, let's move on to their PSC segment, which
Okay.
stands for Pharma and Agro Intermediates and Specialty Chemicals.
Right?
And the call highlighted 4 new agro products that are set to be commercialized in 2025.
That's right. And they're actually constructing a whole plant
Oh, wow.
specifically for these new products, which
Okay.
again suggests,
Shows their confidence.
yeah, exactly, that they're pretty confident
Yeah.
in the potential growth there.
So they're expecting big things
They are.
from this segment. Now, before we move on, I wanted to touch on a couple of other things
Yeah.
that the earnings call mentioned.
Right,
So
like that new distillation plant.
yes, that just came online. That's freeing up some production capacity.
Exactly, giving them a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and then there's the flame retardant product that they're developing.
yeah.
Although it sounds like they're being pretty cautious about pricing on that one.
Yeah, they're definitely taking their time.
Yeah.
And I think that shows that they're not just trying to like.
Take a quick buck.
Yeah, exactly. They're being strategic. They're understanding their markets.
Yeah.
And they're making these really calculated decisions.
Now, speaking of calculated risks,
Yes.
I think their move into producing these ultra high purity chemicals for the semiconductor industry,
Oh yeah.
that's got to be like their most ambitious move yet.
It's a big one for her.
Yeah. I mean,
Semiconductors.
semiconductors, it's a whole other world.
It is, and the level of precision
Right.
that you need for
Right.
these chemicals is just
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Not mind blowing.
Like yeah, like you're basically
Yeah.
creating a diamond, but on a molecular level.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah, that puts it into perspective. So, what are some of the biggest challenges?
Oh, there are plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
Just achieving that level of purity
Right.
is a feat
Yeah.
in and of itself.
Right.
They've had to invest in specialized equipment.
Right.
They've had to develop new processes.
Yeah.
And get this,
Okay.
the earnings core even mentioned that they've had to master making super pure water.
Super pure water.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
So basically, even the tiniest impurities
Okay.
in the water
Okay.
can mess up the whole
Wow.
process.
Right.
So they've basically had to become like water purification experts.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's incredible. But why even bother with all this?
Oh, the payoff could be massive.
Okay.
Like if they succeed,
Yeah.
they could become the first
In-
India
Yeah.
to produce these chemicals
Yeah.
at this level of purity,
Uh-huh.
which would position them
Oh, wow.
as like a key player in the global
Yeah.
semiconductor supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be huge.
It would be huge.
for India.
Exactly. Like imagine a scenario
Yeah.
where India becomes this hub for semiconductor manufacturing,
Yeah.
right? Supplying components for all these electronics
Yes.
worldwide.
Yeah, it could really boost their economy.
It could boost the economy, it could create jobs,
Yeah.
it could attract
Investment.
investment.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to think about.
It's pretty sad.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
Right.
It's still early days.
Yeah, it's early days.
And there's no guarantee that they're going to succeed.
No guarantees, but
Yeah.
you have to admire
Yeah.
the ambition, right?
Yeah.
And the willingness to like push the boundaries.
Yeah. Stepping back for a second, what do you think is most striking about Tatva Chintan's like overall approach?
Well, I think what really stands out to me is their commitment to innovation,
Okay.
but in a way that's very strategic
Yeah.
and measured.
Okay.
They're not just like
Throwing spaghetti at the wall.
exactly. They're not just like
Yeah.
throwing things out there and seeing what sticks.
Right.
They're really, looking at market trends, they're identifying opportunities.
They're thinking it through.
Yeah, and they're making calculated investments.
And they're also really good at diversifying.
Oh yeah, they're masters of diversification.
Yeah.
They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Right. And that makes them more resilient.
Exactly. Like we were talking about with the SDA situation.
Yeah, with the policy shifts, the economic downturns.
Yeah. And that's really smart.
It seems like a really
Yeah.
sound strategy for
Yeah.
long-term success.
Exact.
So, they're playing the long game,
Yeah.
they're diversifying their portfolio, and they're pushing those boundaries of innovation, it sounds like.
It's a recipe for success.
Yeah, it's a really good approach,
Yeah.
especially in today's world, which is
Right. And
so complex.
what's even more impressive is that they're doing all this
Yeah.
while navigating
Yeah.
all these external pressures,
Yeah, like what?
like, the cost of raw materials
Oh, yeah.
fluctuating all the time,
Uh-huh.
the supply chain challenges,
Right.
which, they even talked about in the earnings call.
Yeah.
Like they're seeing longer lead times.
Yeah.
It's difficult to get things where they need to be.
Yeah, it's tough out there.
It is.
So how are they dealing with all that?
Well, they're being creative, right? They're
Actually.
optimizing their processes as much as possible.
Okay.
They're looking for alternative suppliers.
Yeah.
They're even investing in new facilities.
Right, like that distillation plant.
Exactly. So they can have more control
Yeah.
over their
Yeah.
production.
So they're constantly adapting and finding ways to
Yeah.
overcome these
And I think adaptability
obstacles. Yeah.
is really key
Yeah.
to their success.
Yeah.
It allows them to respond quickly
Yeah.
to whatever the market throws at them.
Right. So for our listener who maybe hasn't heard of Tatva Chintan before,
Right?
what would you say is the one key takeaway?
I think the biggest takeaway here is
Yeah.
you got to pay attention
Yeah.
to the quiet innovators.
Yeah. The ones you don't hear about?
Yeah, exactly. The companies that are working hard behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Solving these complex problems.
Right.
And really quietly shaping
Yeah.
the future of these industries.
Yeah.
Tatva Chintan is the perfect example of that.
Right. And they show that
Yeah.
you don't have to be
A household
a household name
Exactly.
to be really making a difference
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah, I think their approach
Yeah.
is something that any company could learn from.
Yeah,
especially
today.
in today's world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're really a model for how to navigate these complexities.
Exactly. It's all about combining that ambition
Yeah.
with pragmatism.
So they have the vision, but they're also
Grounded.
in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
It's a delicate balance.
it's a hard balance to strike.
Yes.
So if you could give our listener like one piece of advice
Okay.
based on what we've learned about Tatva Chintan today.
I would say, don't underestimate the power
Oh.
of quiet innovation.
Yeah.
Look beyond the headlines,
Well,
and pay attention to those companies that are diligently working,
right.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They may not be
Precisely.
the flashiest,
Yeah.
or the most well-known,
Yeah.
but they're often the ones who are really truly
Driving progress.
driving progress. Yeah.
Tatva Chintan is a great example of that. So
Exactly.
who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe their story will inspire other companies to kind of follow a similar path.
Right. To really focus on
Yeah.
innovation and diversification
Yeah.
and strategic growth
Yeah.
and strategic growth
Yeah.
and operating with integrity,
Yeah. Yeah,
with a
yeah.
long-term vision.
That would be a good thing.
That would be a good thing.
I think this deep dive into Tatva Chintan has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
It's not just about chemicals.
Right.
It's about the power of innovation. It's about strategic thinking.
Right.
It's about
Impact.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that even a lesser known company can really have a big impact on the world. It's really
Yeah.
quite inspiring.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that there's always more to discover.
Yeah.
And often the most interesting stories are kind of hidden.
Yeah.
They're not the ones that are always,
Right on the surface.
making headlines.
Yeah.
But they're there.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive today.
Okay.
I hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of Tatva Chintan.
I hope so. Yeah.
As much as we have.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
And remember, keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep learning and keep an eye out.
Keep an eye out
For those hidden gems.
for those hidden gems
that are quietly shaping the future.
Seriously.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Happy diving.
Happy diving.